I very first got involved in 1984 when my dad, Ian Dury, was a patron. I was aware of the company from then because he had got to know Nuffield very well. So Nuffield used to visit his dad's flat in Hammersmith, and quite often I was there, so I got to know him a little bit. And then really my sort of very direct involvement started when a script landed on the doormat back in, it would have been summer of 2010 probably, as Reasons to be Cheerful was being conceived and produced. So that's when Grey Eye sort of came back on the radar for me, really. And then obviously the involvement with the show started from the moment I actually went to see the first performance. So yeah. Well, I don't think I've ever completely fessed up to Jenny and other people at Grey Eye that the first time I got the script that year, it was a very busy year for all things related to Dad. The film Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll had just come out earlier that year in the January. So I was a little bit jaded with Dury-related projects. I have to say I was really knackered from doing that. So when the script turned up, I acknowledged it and I thought, lovely, that sounds great. And I kind of read it and let it be. And then I waited and then there were invitations coming for the first performance. And I didn't respond straight away. I suppose I was a little bit lackluster about, okay, I've got to get this together. And eventually I arranged with the company to go and see the show at Stratford East. And I turned up and I didn't know at all what to expect. And so I kind of turned up slightly out of sense of duty that I must come and see the show. And then by the interval, I was kind of pinned to the back of the seat and, oh my God, whatever they want me to do, I'm going to do it. And I shall be completely available to Jenny for the rest of my existence. And so straight away, watching the show, by the interval, memory after memory after memory of Blockheads gigs and that kind of energy straight back to the 70s, that all came up for me instantly. And I think it did for people who hadn't even been there, frankly, because when I went to the toilets in the interval, there were all these young black kids from Newham College. They're in the toilets, sex and drugs and rock. I just thought, God, talk about a new audience. It was amazing. So it was, I felt immense pride and excitement that the music had gone round and come back generation later, still had that impact. So I felt very proud of what Dad and the Blockheads had achieved. I hadn't seen anything as brilliantly accessible on that level at all before. And when I did see it, my feeling was, of course, why isn't everything like this? Why aren't all shows made accessible? This should be the way theatre is run in every performance, in every production. So it was a very, very pleasant surprise. It wasn't a surprise, it seemed like a no-brainer to me, actually, that's how a show could be produced. So it was very exciting and an extremely positive, very positive experience to see a company doing it and making it possible for anyone to be involved without compromising on quality or skill, or you just pull in the skills and make it possible for anyone with a particular skill to be there doing what they do. It was brilliant. Oh, that's quite a lot of scope there. Now, luckily, I've worked this out already, that I was 10 and then 41 and then nearly 50 on those 3 occasions. When I was 10, I was just starting out in a dance career and I was very much influenced by my dad's career and what was happening to him. He had risen to fame, so life was very intense and on a quite a big scale and quite lively. So it was all very exciting and proactive. There was a lot going on, and then jump forward to 2010, and I had lost Dad and my mum as well. So life had taken a completely different turn. But also I'd had 3 children by then, so it kind of came with intense sadness and then extreme joy as well. So there was a very turbulent, in fact, I was probably a bit unhinged for most of those years around then. But going forward again to 2017, things are very positive and a lot calmer and very stable, and I'm quite happy domestically. And I am writing a novel and archiving a lot of Dad's work, so pushing 50, things have calmed down a bit, which is good. Well, there were quite a few Hammersmith Odeon gigs, and I be totally honest, they've all kind of blurred into one gig for me, but I was most likely there because Hammersmith Odeon, as it was known, was quite a sort of gig home from home in those days, and it was Dad's local, if you like. So yes, I remember them extremely well. I remember the dressing room, I remember the smell of the dressing room, I remember the sweat, and I remember Blockheads kids nicking anything they could from the rider table. And I remember, so there was a kind of backstage set of memories, and then there was out the front, and we were usually up in the circle as kids to keep us a little bit out of the mosh pit. So again, it was hot and sweaty in the auditorium as well, and just looking down from the circle at a seething, pogoing, jumping mass of oi oi and shouting, and amazing though, energy, and I think really I'm spoilt for experience there, because you can't get a more funky, rhythmic, soulful, united band than the Blockheads, and you couldn't get a more exciting entertainer and all-round kind of intelligent, amazing person on stage as my dad, and that's very nepotistic, but I also think it's true. And so very hard acts to follow. Don't know if I've ever seen a gig as good, to be honest, but yes, Hammersmith Odeon, late 1970s, definitely the place to be. Oh wow, that was such a surprise, and it was the best moment when I first saw the show. It was such a revelation, and it took Grey Eye to think laterally like that. The Blockheads wouldn't have done it, the family wouldn't have done it, none of us who had grown up with that song would not have made that brave move to just switch it around. I mean, it doesn't seem brave now, it seems absolutely logical, but it's brilliant, it's so brilliant, and it really makes sense of the song in another way. So I loved it. I loved seeing Nadia perform that back in 2010. Really exciting. It was such an extraordinary experience to see the Paralympic opening ceremony, and it was really unclear what was going to happen, because the lead up to it had been so shrouded in secrecy, and we had all been so quiet about it that I barely spoken about it at all to anyone, and just a couple of family members. So it was really hard to imagine how it was all going to play out on the night, and Grey Eye kept it very quiet. What the sort of premise of using it, the staging, all of that had been very quiet. So it was a huge revelation, and it just sort of kept delivering and kept delivering and kept delivering for all the minutes it was on. And I think one of the greatest moments is imagining the lyrics going round and round and round, the stadium on a digital board in front of the Queen. I'll never get over that. That was just wonderful. And I think Dad absolutely would have just been gobsmacked by that whole experience. He would have loved it. So back when the song came out, I was too young to really think clearly about it at the time, but now it doesn't surprise me at all that it was banned. No, I don't think anyone then, and a lot of people now, are comfortable with the word spastic. I don't think people really understood what it meant. It had been so overused as a derogatory term in the wrong way, in a very ignorant way, that there was a very bad connection made with that word. And I think Dad had done a very clever thing to highlight that and to draw that out and to make people uncomfortable about it. But I am not surprised that a certain broadcasting body found it difficult to overcome the controversy and just play it anyway. No, it doesn't surprise me at all. I think they'd struggle today. But we go onwards and upwards, and hopefully that's, it's a very, you have to really sit and listen and consider it. And there are plenty of examples of other people's songs being misread and misheard over the decades, and that's a classic. And you have to really think about it to understand the message. But people can't get past the words, the obvious words, to get through to the message. So it takes very careful thinking and delivery to present that song. But I believe it will be played widely and nationally at some point. I just love. They'd love it. Absolutely love it. He'd be proud of his own work being presented in such a fresh and energetic way. So I think he would enjoy hearing and seeing what was being done with the work in the way Grey Eye have presented it, and he would be right behind what Grey Eye are doing. He'd be 100% there. Because it is the best example of accessible theatre. It is entertainment of the highest order. It's fun. It's a musical. What's not to like about it, basically? Just immense fun.